We did want to share with you some comments from Theo Von. He's been described as Trump's favorite podcaster. Was certainly important as part of the bro podcast sphere that helped to get Trump elected. And he took, a good several minutes on his show to effectively apologize for not saying more about Gaza and to, express that he does believe that this is a genocide that's unfolding before all of our eyes. Let's go ahead and take a listen to a little bit of that.
It feels to me like it's a genocide that's happening while we're alive here in front of our lives. And I don't, sometimes I feel like I should say something. I'm not a geologist or geographer or anything like that, so I don't know a lot of some of it I do know though. I know the basics of the issues over there. But for me, it's just how I feel you see all these photos of people, just children, women, people, body parts, just people putting their kids back together. And I just can't believe that we're watching that and that more isn't said about it. And so I'm not saying anyone else needs to say anything, but I think I'm just that more isn't said about it by me. So I just, I want to be able to speak up about that I think we're watching probably one of the sickest things that's ever happened. And I'm sorry if I've kind of haven't said about it. I've tried to talk about it and learn about it. But I don't know. Maybe I just wanted to say something. I don't even know what to do. And it's crazy because our country's also complicit in it. It's in it and has been for a long time. And it's just kind of interesting because then you just realize, oh, well, I'm a member of this country, but I'm just, what we want sometimes doesn't matter.
That last part is interesting. We'll come back to that. Sometimes in this country, what you want just doesn't matter. Emily, what did you make of the significance of Theo Von there?
Well, so he just had dinner with Ivanka Trump and Jared Kushner.
Yeah, literally last week.
And Jared Kushner, obviously the architect of the Abraham Accords. So I actually find this to be very significant. Joe Rogan has reacted to the war in similar ways. And I think, I was reading yesterday, and I know you're going to talk to Dave Smith about this, but the New York Times had a big dive into the Heritage Foundation's Project Esther over the weekend. And
which shout out to Drop Site reported on this
yes.
A year ago?
Yes.
Yeah, and Theo as well. Yeah.
Yes. And, it's basically the plan that they put in front of the administration to go after students and to suppress speech. And as I was reading this story, I know a lot of people at the Heritage Foundation kind of on both sides of the generational divide, some of the people who are more from the neoconservative version of the Republican Party and people who are in the new right MAGA world. And as I'm listening to Theo Von, I'm thinking, this is going to be a real problem for the old neoconservative Republicans going forward, because as much as it looks like Witkoff is, pulling a fast one and not doing what he said to put pressure on Israel to get an end to the conflict, increasingly, the younger voters in the Republican Party, but even younger staff, is just not on board with this anymore. And they're all listening to people like Theo Von, Joe Rogan. They just have a completely different worldview when it comes to this particular issue. So as I was watching it, that's what was going through my head, that this does resonate, this does move young people on the right, and that is not going to be easily blended with the old neoconservative approach to this for much longer.
Yeah. I mean, I appreciate him saying this to his audience. I want to know if he's also saying it to Jared and Ivanka when he's having dinner with them in a very friendly way. If you're saying this is a genocide, and then he also just went, we can put this up on the screen, A10, he was in Qatar with Trump there. Theo Von riffs on drugs, disabilities, and homosexuality before Trump speaks at U.S. base in Qatar. So, this is someone who has public power, because he's very influential with a large group of young men. And so him using his voice on his platform matters a lot there. But he also has private power because Trump does attribute, some of his electoral victory to people like Theo Von. He's routinely described as Trump's favorite podcast.
Barron probably listens to Theo Von if reports are correct.
Yeah, that's right. No, that was the reporting that Barron was instrumental in putting them together. So he also has private power, and I think that's a real question is, okay, if you see this is a genocide, which I agree with, and at this point many other people do as well, not to mention international organizations as well, like, okay, are you using the inside track that you have to exert pressure internally as well? So that would be my question. But I do think we can go ahead. Let's skip ahead to A12, to your point about the way that public opinion has shifted, because, it's this kind of dichotomy where at the same time that Israel is at its almost like most powerful, all the countries that it's bombing and territory that it's annexing and, on the verge of effectively a final solution in Gaza, the backing in the U.S. has taken a dramatic hit.
I mean,
not among elite elected politicians so much,
right,
but among the people. Just look at these numbers, the way that negative views of Israel have risen in the U.S. So first of all, for maybe the first time ever, majority of U.S. adults, have a negative view of the state of Israel.
So they were asked, so this is a question of, they were asked if they have an unfavorable view of Israel, straight up. That goes from 42% in 2022 to 53% in 2025.
That's right. And Republicans are still the group that has the largest, favorable proportion. But look at that generational divide that Emily was pointing to. So now you have a majority of Republicans between 18 and 49, so not even that particularly young, 50% now say they have an unfavorable view. Man, those boomer Republicans, though, they love them some Israel. They have barely budged.
Look at those. I mean, the number, the generational divide is more than half. So only 23% of 50-plus Republicans have an unfavorable view of Israel. And it's, as Krystal said, 50% of ages 18 to 49. I bet if you just did 18 to 24, that number would be even higher.
I have no doubt about that.
And these are all people in one party. And granted, it's not what people go to the polls and vote based on, but it does create a permission structure for politicians to act in various ways. So when you look at those numbers, at some point, that has to change the way Republican politicians approach the issue. You would think, but that's what Theo Von gets to at the end of his moment there, where he says it feels like there's nothing.
It feels like what we want doesn't really matter. And if you look at the Democratic numbers there, you see a huge shift where now you've got 69% of Democrats and lean Dems overall with an unfavorable view, and a much smaller
basically no
generational divide. So 71% of 18 to 49-year-olds. 66% of 50 plus. And those 50 plus in the Democratic Party, that is the group that has moved the most. Because it used to be just if you're of an older generation, like Joe Biden, you support Israel and you really don't think too much about it. And that has shifted dramatically. And I actually do think that this issue is important electorally. I think it's going to be quite significant in the Democratic primary in 2028. I think it will be a litmus test in the Democratic primary in 2028. And I also think, it speaks to the hypocrisies of America First when you're claiming like, okay, we're just going to focus on U.S. interests, and yet you're still funding this genocide with our tax dollars, shipping all this money and weapons and diplomatic support to Israel to do whatever the hell Israel wants to do. So there is an electoral hypocrisy there that also, I think, I don't think it will be insignificant. Not that it's going to be everybody's number one issue, but when we talk to those AOC Trump voters, a lot of them actually did bring up Ukraine and Israel and, a sense of dissatisfaction with Biden and Harris on those issues in particular. So I don't want to downplay it either.
Well, and for a lot of working class voters, you look at that actually as a material kitchen table concern for yourself, because it makes you angry that you're struggling in no small part in some cases because of the way the government has structured the economy, because of the way the government spends its money. And you see all of this funding going to foreign conflicts with, in many cases, no end in sight.
And politicians who seem to care more about a foreign country than they do this one.
100%. So, yeah, I mean, I think this is also, and this is something that I don't think those older, conservative, actually I should say Republicans and Democrats have grappled with yet, is the post-imperial era of America's approach to the Middle East. So for generations that grew up amidst the failures in Iraq and Afghanistan, that looking at Israel post October 7th, I think it's actually just a very different dynamic. And we could go back and have conversations about historical Israel and the last 100 years of history in Israel, if not longer. But there's definitely, this is a new chapter in American relationship. Post October 7th is a new chapter in America's relationship with Israel. And in a sense, I think for a lot of people, it's come across as much more egregious, as a different version, or a changed version. I shouldn't say different, but a changed version of Israel that's engaging in negotiations with the U.S. and that is having these back and forth with U.S. power. So, I mean, I think that's one thing that just has not been understood very well. Israel is in a different position these days.
Well, and one of the most, going back to Theo Vaughn's comments, one of the most potent arguments that pro-Israel people have made in the past is, well, you don't understand the history, it's too complicated.
Yes.
So just stay out of it. Just let us worry about it. You don't worry about it. Just trust us that you're on the right side. It's all good.
It's good versus bad, right? There's always this very Manichaean, dark and light, good and bad. And what they don't understand is now with social media, you can see everything.
Right. And so I think that that worked really well on liberals for a long time of well, the history is just really complicated and you don't understand. And now, because those images are so undeniable, it has sort of overcome this unwillingness to engage with it, where it's okay, but maybe I don't need to know 100 years of history. Maybe I can have my own moral judgment about what's being done right now, today, in the present, with my tax dollars and as the world watches.
Ryan and I fell into a long conversation on an episode a few months ago about how what happened to Shireen Abu Akleh was a sort of changing moment for me. And part of that was because you could piece together so many different social media, so much different evidence from social media, and all these different angles of video, all of these different movements were captured on iPhone cameras or smartphone cameras.
Right.
And when you're able to see so much different pieces of the puzzle, you can put it together in ways that gives the propaganda a lot less power.
Yeah, I think that's right. And I think also coming at a time when trust in mainstream media has never been lower, their ability to manufacture consent is vastly diminished, certainly within the Republican Party, but increasingly within the Democratic Party as well. There was one more thing we wanted to get to here, which again, I think is kind of a sign of the times, which is Bernie Sanders on the most mainstream shows you could get on with Stephen Colbert late night, and calling out directly the influence of AIPAC specifically in politics as the reason why Democrats are unable to break with the consensus with regard to Israel. Let's go ahead and take a listen to what Bernie had to say.
But on the Democratic side, and this is what we've got to deal with, I happen to believe that what is going on in Gaza right now is horrific, that we are seeing children right now as we speak starving to death, massive malnutrition.
Your fellow Vermonter, Ben of Ben & Jerry's, was actually at one of the hearings I believe you were at yesterday and was dragged out when he was making that protest.
Right. But why do you think more Democrats are not speaking up on that issue?
Money?
Yeah, of course. If you speak up on that issue, you'll have super PACs like AIPAC going after you in the same way Elon Musk goes after Republicans.
There you go, calling out AIPAC directly to applause on, I still want to call it the Colbert Report. That's how old I am, but anyway.
I wish.
I wish,
I
too.
mean, that would be amazing.
That was the peak. He was at his height of his powers then.
I mean, absolutely. It'll never be anything like the Colbert Report again. But yeah, I think it's a good point. It's just we see all kinds of anecdotal evidence, and then the polling numbers bears it out, that just the U.S. public has shifted on this, and I think part of it is fatigue and disillusionment with American empire post-Iraq and Afghanistan, and a sort of a sense of cynicism about what's possible, what the American empire can accomplish in bringing peace to the Middle East, as opposed to focusing back at home. And I'm not going to open up the can of worms that is that debate right now, but I think that is the sense that so many people have, on top of what they've seen over the course of the last several years. And in this case, again, with seemingly no end in sight. I mean,
That's right.
every time it feels like there's a light at the end of the tunnel, it goes away, it fades. So yeah, people are just sick of it.
Yeah.
Hey, if you like that video, hit the like button or leave a comment below. It really helps get the show to more people.
And if you'd like to get the full show ad-free and in your inbox every morning, you can sign up at breakingpoints.com.
That's right. Get the full show, help support the future of independent media at breakingpoints.com.